So our main meditation focus is this. So imagine, you've done that. You develop some sense of the preciousness, rarity, and great value of your life as a human being. And the very next meditation, is Permanence of Death. So you have this thing of great value, but you're not going to have it forever. Right? And that's true, unfortunately. Right? And so what I'd like to do is, there are many, many, many meditations on permanence and death in Buddhism. Right? And actually, if you read the ancient scriptures of the Buddha, the Buddha would often send monks off to the charnel grounds of India, right? And the charnel grounds, right, they're not like cemeteries here, where there's just gravestones. There's actual bodies in different states of decay, right? There are bones, and there are rotting bodies, and there are, funeral pyres of people being burned, and all that. And so the Buddha would send people off there. Now again, if you don't know the stages of the path, it could be a little confusing. You can think, why are people doing that? It sounds a little like a downer. But if you understand the stages of the path, then you'll understand why one does that at a certain stage of practice, and there's a use to it. So let's go through that. So you have this sense of the great preciousness, rarity, and value of your life, right? But here's the problem, right? Let's say you meditate like that, right? If that were all you did, you might think, oh, that's cool. I've got a great life. This is great. I'm, not in all those other realms. I have this really good thing. Let me take a vacation now. I'm going to go down to the beach and hang out. I'm just giving a metaphor there, right? But there's not yet much motivation to practice necessarily, right? There's just a feeling of appreciation and joy, but one isn't necessarily doing anything about that yet. So then, and again, there are many different meditations, but the one that's most commonly taught in the stages of the path, so the one that we'll do here, is sometimes it's called the 9-point death meditation, or sometimes Ken Soroshe went into more detail. He called it the meditation with, I think it's got 3 roots, 9 reasons, and 3 results. And maybe what we should do is actually meditate on this one. That's one thing. I'll do it I'm just going to give it as an example. So what I'll do is I'll just guide us through it. So it's a contemplative. This is not a fixed meditation, right? It's a contemplative meditation. So let's actually do this one. But here's what I want to remind you of. When you do a contemplative meditation, right? Now I'm going to be talking today because you guys aren't so familiar with it. But if you're going to go home and try this one, I hope, right? So here's what you would do. First of all, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to contemplate on the 9 points. 3 reasons, 3 roots, 9 reasons, and 3 results, right? If something unrelated to those comes up in my mind, right, I'm not going to sit and think about it. I'm going to let it go, right? Because then if you do that, if you say, okay, I'm going to think about those, and then you start thinking about it, and then you go, oh, I forgot to do this paper at work, and what am I going to do about that? Well, then you're no longer doing contemplative meditation. You're thinking about work. Right? So your job is, if you think of something unrelated to these topics, you let it go and come back to the topic. Makes sense, right? Second thing is, as you contemplate these are structured, right? So as long as you're within the structure, you're doing fine, and you can bring your own life experience in. Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean, sometimes when you meditate on these, it's great. You memorize the 3. You have to eventually, you can keep a piece of paper in front of you if you want, but eventually you memorize them, right? So you stay with these points, and so you do memorize the points. If you memorize, quotes from great teachers, that helps, right? But you also have to add in your own experience, right? So if you're thinking everybody dies, right? The first point is, the certainty of death. Right? So if I'm meditating on that, I may think of a quote from some great Lama, but I also would think, for example, well, that's also pretty logical, right? My grandfather died, my other grandfather died, my father died, everybody dies. There's nobody on this planet who's older than 120. Everybody in Washington is going to be dead within, 100 years from now. Everybody I see is going to be dead, not one person. So you're sort of getting out there. So you start to relate it to your own experience. You think, wow, my body is not quite the same as it was 20 years ago. That sort of implies something, doesn't it? So you get my point there. Is is that still within the topic, right? But you're bringing your own experience to the topic. That's excellent. So you get what I'm getting at there? But if you go off from the topic into, let's say I'm thinking, well, my father died, I guess I'm going to die too, right? That's still the topic. If I then start to think, gosh, I miss my dad, I remember when we used to play sports together, that's off the topic, I need to go, and then I go, oh, wait a second, I've drifted away, come back. You get the way you do it. Okay, well, why don't we do it, though, as an actual contemplation? So I'm going to talk during this one, because, just to give the structure of it. So 2 things. One is, feel free, if, once you get the topic that I'm on, to use your own experience. In other words, if you, feel free to ignore me, in other words. Feel free to think of your own experience, right? I'm just going to keep giving examples in case it's not clear. But feel free to ignore that part. But I'm going to go through each of the 9 parts. So, just keep track of that, and you can move on to the next one. I'm not going to spend super long on any one of them because I want to cover the whole sequence to give you the feeling of it. But okay, so we'll start though. This is actually we're not yet on that, but we're just reminding ourselves, right, that I right now have this incredibly precious, rare human life, which is unbelievably valuable, unbelievably useful, is very difficult to achieve, but once found is highly meaningful. I can achieve, anything with this. I could achieve good rebirths in the future. I could achieve, in this very life, liberation from samsara. I could achieve nirvana. I could realize bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva. Because the unification of the general teachings of the Buddha and Tantra exist on this planet, I could even achieve enlightenment in one lifetime. So with this life, I could achieve anything, any spiritual goal that exists. It's the most rare, most precious, most valuable kind of life. So that's just a reminder, and now we'll begin the actual sequence. So the first general point, the first root is the certainty of death. So the first thing we contemplate is, it's absolutely, positively, 100% certain that I myself am going to die. So now we begin to analyze that. Just the fact that I was born makes my death certain. This kind of body that I have, that's its very nature. And everyone who's born with this kind of body dies. Throughout human history, even the most powerful people, like kings, presidents, emperors, they all die. The greatest physicians in human history, great researchers and great doctors, they die also. People who eat much more, eat regularly and exercise, take excellent care of themselves, they also die. Very strong people die. Weak people die. Rich people, poor people. There's no place I can go where I can escape from death. There's nothing I can buy that will free me from death. And even in terms of spiritual practice, right? The Buddha, he's also no longer here. All the great spiritual teachers, actually from every tradition, if you look on this planet for the body of the Buddha or Lao Tzu or Jesus, or Moses or Muhammad, you can't find them. So it doesn't matter if you have worldly power or some kind of spiritual quality. Everybody dies. So you just try to develop the feeling of conviction. Yes, I also am going to die. Tsongkhapa, when he gives the example, he says, just like when you're born, then your death is guaranteed. He says it's like a person who was pushed off a cliff, a very high cliff, and is falling. As soon as they were pushed off the cliff, their death by hitting the bottom is guaranteed. In the same way, by birth, my eventual death is guaranteed. So that one's an absolute certainty. We'll continue on. The next point is, therefore, every second that passes, every moment that passes, my lifespan is running out. Since there's an absolute maximum, right? So every second I'm running towards that. There's never a break, right? There's never like a pause. Each second is your life. This moment, this moment. And that the time you have is like water running out of your, cupped hand, running through your fingers. Or it's like a waterfall that never ceases. So these moments are passing by. And again, you can see this one, you can realize it through your own. This is like just logical, actually. There's no way to disprove it. It's absolutely clear that each moment my life is running out. This is not just something like intellectual or something about somebody else, it's my life. So my life is running out second by second. And that leads directly into the third point, which is that even when I'm distracted, even when I'm asleep or distracted by something, even when I'm not focused on spirituality or things like that, even then my life is running out. If I'm asleep, if I'm watching a movie, if I'm chatting, gossiping and chatting with a friend, still my life is running out. With each word that's spoken, I'm that much closer to the end of my life. So the conclusion of these 3 points, the first of the 3 conclusions, the first conclusion is, wow, that since I have this precious human life, it's absolutely certain I'm going to die. My life is running out all the time. And, even when I'm distracted, my life is running out. I have to practice some Dharma. I have to practice something spiritual. I have to use this precious life to achieve something meaningful through the practice, through inner training, through the practice of training my mind in the path. I must do that. So one tries to develop like a feeling or conviction like that, and then dwell in that feeling, dwell in that conviction, that experiential conviction. I must practice that. So now while you're dwelling, whatever level of that conviction, the conviction I must practice Dharma, this life is impermanent, then we start with the second of the three roots, which is the time of death is uncertain. So now, we know we have this precious human life, and we know that it's impermanent, that we won't have it forever. Now we begin to contemplate the fact that the time of death is uncertain. So the first reason to contemplate on that one is, on this planet, beings, the reality, and this is observable through direct perception, is beings die at any age. There's no fixed lifespan. We know that some human beings, right, die in the womb. Some die at childbirth. Some die in childhood. Sometimes teenagers pass away. Young adults. Middle-aged people. Older people. 100% for sure, there is no fixed lifespan. Actually, every day, people who are exactly my age now die. It's not like a rare occurrence, actually. It happens all the time. And we know that, actually. If we contemplate, right, untimely deaths, surprising deaths, right, deaths of young people. People get cancer. That somebody's fortunate enough not to get cancer, but they die of a heart attack. Somebody's fortunate enough not to have that, but then some accident occurs. Some illness. Some infection. Aneurysms, right? There's so many causes of death. So we just contemplate. Absolutely for sure, there's no guarantee how long I'll live. Since lifespan is not fixed, then my lifespan is not fixed. There's no guarantee that I'll live past this year. There's no guarantee I'll live past this month. There's no guarantee I'll live through this week. Actually, many beings will die today. There's no guarantee I won't be one of them. And these are all just facts, actually. So we contemplate that until we develop some sense of conviction. Yeah, lifespan on this planet is uncertain. My lifespan is uncertain. I may die at any time. And that flows directly into the next line of reasoning, which is that even the things that I do to extend my life could cause my death. There's so many. So not only could like diseases and things like that kill me, but like every day, in order to live, I have to eat, and yet like eating the wrong food could kill me. Whether because it has like some bacteria in it, or because it's the wrong kind of food for my body, or because it clogs my arteries, or many ways. Same thing, right? Like people go to the doctor in the hospital, to save their life, but actually, all the time, people, medical mistakes or infections at the hospital or in the doctor's office cause people to die. Also, like I drive to work in order to live, right? To make money to live, but I could die on the way to work. People die in car accidents on the way to work, on the way home from work every day. So it's like, actually there's a sense in this one, first of all, that even the things I do to extend my life can end it. Right? And so that I don't have, part of the implication of that is, not only is lifespan unfixed and uncertain, but I don't have any control over it. or I have very little control. Like none of the people who die young, very few of them want to die. Most of them want to live longer, and we're the same, right? So we may take help certain foods and vitamins to live. Hopefully that'll work, but it may, could also cause our death. We don't have any control over the process. And the last of these three reasons is that all of that is true because this body is incredibly fragile. The metaphor that's usually used is it's like a water bubble. And actually just take a moment to contemplate your own body and you'll see that's true, right? There are all these little tiny, right, like veins and arteries. If you think of what an aneurysm, right? If one of those pops, one of those breaks open, deep inside of you, in a few moments, you're dead. Like the blood vessels in the brain, right? One of those bursts open, or gets completely clogged, right? You could have a stroke, and die quickly. It happens every day, actually. These tiny, just like a tiny, tiny cut, right? Sometimes people get just like a tiny cut on their body. If it happens to have the wrong kind of bacteria in it or virus, then they die. And this happens to young people and older people. Right? It could happen at any age. It happens all the time. So the body's incredibly fragile, just like a few cells, right? If a few cells of bacteria touch the wrong part of your body, you can die. A few bits of virus, so quickly. If a few cells, a tiny bit, just a few cells turn cancerous, and so quickly. So the idea here is you're just contemplating how my body is so fragile. It's like a bubble, like a water bubble in the air. That we already contemplated for sure, 100% certain it's going to pop. But actually it can end at any second. One of the lines that's often mentioned on this point is, the only difference between, you being alive or you being dead is that you're still breathing. Like right now you're breathing, and all that has to happen is you stop breathing. And then we say, oh, that person's dead. So it's like a very fine line. And the conclusion of these 3 points is, not only must I practice Dharma, but I must practice now. So you contemplate those points until you get that feeling, I want to take the essence of my life now. I don't want to wait. This life is so precious, so rare. I can achieve anything with it. And because I may die at any moment, my lifespan's not fixed, and even I may die today, that right this moment I want to practice something meaningful. I want to extract the essence of my life. I want to do what's most meaningful, most beneficial, most deeply rich and meaningful right now. There's no time to wait, because I can't say, oh, well, I'll practice later, because I don't know that later I'll still be alive, so I must practice now. So again, whatever of that feeling you can get in touch with, then you kind of let your mind dwell in it. Not only must I practice spiritual path, but path of Dharma, spiritual path, but I must practice it now. I want to practice it now, before my time ends. now we'll move on to the third root, the third general point. And that one is that nothing other than Dharma is helpful at the time of death. And again, this one has three main reasons or contemplations. So one is that money and wealth are not helpful at the time of death. And so actually that's certain. Whereas you can't take even 1 penny with you. You can't take your favorite book, your favorite shirt, car, your house, nothing. None of that, nothing goes with you. Nothing goes with me, right? You're thinking like that. None of those things will go with me. And actually, if anything, you know, if I have a lot of stuff and suddenly I'm dying, if anything, actually, if you actually imagine yourself dying, you see, not only will those not help me, they'll actually may harm me. Because I'll worry. If I have a bunch of stuff and then I'm dying, I may worry, oh wow, did I put my affairs in order? Will somebody know what to do? Oh, I still want to do that. I still like those things. If anything, having stuff can, because you can't take it with you, if anything, it'll just agitate me. And the more stuff I have, the more likely that I'll feel some sense of grasping and agitation at suddenly losing it all. As we're meditating, that's when we can think, like if I walked outside of here today and somebody stole my car, I would be quite upset. And if I get home and somebody broke into my house, I would be quite upset. But when I die, all those things will be stolen at once. So for sure, right, having stuff, wealth or possessions won't help me when I die. I can't take them with me, so they can't help me. But they may harm me, actually. So there's no benefit of any of that. It's completely meaningless at the time of death. If anything, it's only, can't help it, it can only cause me problems. And then also next point, the next contemplation here is that also friends and relatives can't help. Right? Even if they care about me, first of all, the reality is they have no power to help me when I'm dying. I have to face my own death alone. My mind will, actually my perception of them even will absorb, right? I won't be able to see them, I won't be able to hear them as I begin going into the death process. And again, if anything, they, first of all, even if they want to, they don't have any ability to help me. And from my side, my attachment to them may harm me. If I'm grasping at them, and missing them, and want them, and want to be with them, it may just, there's a chance it could agitate my mind, upset me. So they can't help me, and my attachment to them may actually hurt me. It certainly they can't give me enlightenment, or give me nirvana, or give me a good rebirth, right? They have absolutely no power to do that. Zero. But my grasping at them, could cause me many problems. Much suffering. And then even my body itself can't help me at all at the time of death. My body has been throughout this life, right, the thing I treasured the most. Obviously, I've identified so much with it. And yet, as soon as I die, right, actually then my body's called a corpse. Something that's actually frightening to people. And that's considered extremely unsanitary. Ordinarily we think of poop as the least sanitary thing, but actually people are more afraid of the contamination, right, from a rotting corpse. So this body, which I treasure and take good care of, and try to eat right and exercise, then when I stop breathing, right, Like, if you left that body somewhere for 24 hours, then it would be like, smelly, putrid, anybody would be afraid of it. I myself would be afraid of it. So for sure, this body can't help me at the time of death. If anything, it would be something frightening and scary. The goal of people would be just to dispose of it. And so the conclusion of these 3 points is, not only must I practice Dharma, not only, do I want to practice Dharma now, but that spiritual practice is the most important. That only the Dharma practice I've done is helpful at the time of death. And death may come at any moment, any day, any week. So it's the most important. It's the only thing that helps then, so it's the most important one. So one makes a conclusion or a feeling, wow, I really want to put my energy into something deeply meaningful. I really want to put my energy into practicing the path. I really want to put my main focus and energy every moment into practicing spirituality, Dharma, path to a higher goal. I don't want to waste this precious life. I don't want to waste any of these precious moments. I want to put all my energy into that, starting right now. And this moment, the next moment, today, that's what I want to do. I want to put my energy into that deeply, wholeheartedly.